Jakob Ingebrigtsen made history yet again at the World Indoor Championships in Nanjing. In fact, this latest accomplishment is so rare that only one other runner has ever done it before. Is this finally enough to settle the question? Is Ingebrigtsen the best? We'll break it down, and you can decide that for yourself.
The latest in running news brought to you by AtoZrunning. I'm Andy.
And I'm Zach. And be sure to stick around to the end of the show today because we are going to be playing a Boston Marathon trivia game with AI. It's very fun and very interesting and a complete surprise for Andy. She has not yet experienced what I have in store for you all. It'll be loads of fun, but it's going to be at the end because you have to have something exciting to look forward to in these kinds of things. Speaking of exciting things, Ingebrigtsen once held the title of youngest sub-4 miler in history at age 16. That is, until a 15-year-old just broke it. We'll tell you all about that. But before we do, let's talk about the World Indoor Championships. Because it was one of the two world championships that happens every year in track. And the indoor championships kind of tends to feel like the forgotten sibling in the family of exciting track events on the year. But we still like it and want to cover it because it is exciting.
Yeah, there was some good racing.
There's a lot of good racing. So some quick general knowledge about this year's World Championships held in Nanjing, China. Much like indoors traditionally, most of the big name headliners did not show up. And there's lots of reasons for that. And I'm just always curious, why do so many of the premium athletes not attend? They just don't do it. It's not that they don't try. They just don't even do it. They could, but they don't.
This is why.
Well, the money is a piece of it. So Michael Johnson's new Grand Slam track series is starting in exactly 2 weeks after the World Indoor Championships. And a lot of the big headliners are there. And they're making way more money doing that than this indoor championships. Also, World Outdoor is not until September, and a number of athletes specifically said, this just is not great timing to do a championship racing thing. I'm really thinking about the rest of my season, and it's not the best time. So there's that. And it's indoor track, and a lot of people around the world just simply do not do indoor track. It's not a ubiquitous
They don't
experience.
have them. They don't even have indoor tracks to practice on.
Don't have them, don't travel for them. It's just not part of the equation. And so, for instance, Australia as a nation very rarely does indoor track stuff, like athletes from Australia.
Because it's summer there.
It's summer there. It is their outdoor track season right now. Like the Australian Outdoor Track Championships are right around the same time as the World Indoor Championships. And so there's a kind of disconnect there. But historically, Australian runners have almost never done indoor track races. It's just not for those reasons.
They did this year. Spoiler
Some
alert.
Did, in fact.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, you have other factors, like the East African countries rarely ever compete in indoor track and field. And so that takes out a big chunk of the competitive distance runners in the world. And
yeah,
so,
a few do, but I'm sure that that's very calculated, right? Okay, who do we think can win and things of that nature, and not a large amount of their premium athletes are coming, just a few.
Yeah. And further still, you can actually kind of predict who some of those are going to be because they tend to be the runners who live in other places.
Yeah, good call.
So they don't actually live in East Africa and train there year-round. They might live in Europe. They might live in the United States.
Yeah, the U.S. I would imagine that that's the case for some of the other athletes from representing other nationalities at the World Championships as well.
Yeah. In fact, case in point. So that's what brings us to then why the World Indoor Championships tends to be an underreported experience.
But this one I felt was more well attended than some of the previous.
That's because it was in China.
Championships. I mean, as far as athletes.
Gotcha.
We had some more. There's always some good athletes, but I feel like there were more.
That's because Ingebrigtsen showed up. So
he's going to be there, I'm going to be there.
Well, there's some of that, but also there's a lot of attention on Ingebrigtsen being there.
Yeah.
In no small part because he was one of the biggest names to show up, but also because he's been a central figure in the excitement around track and field for some time.
And according to his brother, he's not peaking for this. He's just full of running.
I don't think he said.
He didn't say full of running. He said he is he's dreading what he'll do when he's not running on full training.
I can't remember how he said something about his training. It was funny. We reported on that previously, so you can go find it elsewhere. Yeah, that was a funny one. Okay, so Andy, get us started at least. We're going to talk through the distance races from World Indoors.
Okay, so we're going to start with the women's 3,000 meter run. And the interesting point for news in the U.S. was that Shelby Houlihan, after a 4-year ban, was going to make her world stage debut.
Yes. So the question is she back for real?
For real? Well, she's been posting great times in general, but this is where it counts. When there's more competition, the other ones didn't have quite as much competition for her. Mm-hmm. For Wendy Hailu, I'm just going to come out and say it, she won in a time of 8:37.21.
Hailu is Ethiopian and notorious for having a savage kick.
Yeah, and was the favorite, I think, coming into this race, right?
Insofar as things are favorites. I mean, Jessica Hull of Australia is definitely not a sleeper pick here.
No.
But she also is somewhat... no, she's not a rookie at racing indoors because she raced NCAA and so had quite a bit of indoor experience through the time, but doesn't compete indoors often as a professional runner. Mm-hmm.
Doesn't she have the 2,000 meter outdoor world record?
Yes.
Yeah. So 3,000. This is her wheelhouse for sure. So it was a race, definitely. There was a lot of back and forth, and it was down to the wire to get our gold, silver, and bronze. Houlihan ended up getting the silver place medal, 8:38.26, to beat Jessica Hull, who is in really good form the last few years. Just has been continuing to rise and rise and rise. So that's like really good for Houlihan to be up there with her without as much experience in the last couple of years. Jessica Hull, though, right 0.2 of a second or hundredths of a second behind an 8:38.28.
So this was Houlihan's first ever global medal.
I was shocked by that. I was questioning that piece of data because I just couldn't believe it with the American records that she's held and how she's done just competitively in her career. But it's true.
The important thing to remember is when her ban was served 4 years ago now, she was really just emerging as such a prominent force in U.S. distance running. So, no, if anything, she just hadn't had the opportunity yet to do what everyone thought was inevitable at the time. But she has started to now.
I have to say, Hailu did close in a 59, which I feel like a lot of us, when we can hear like, oh, wow, sub-4 pace.
I think 59 final 400 meters.
Final 400 meters, yeah. So putting that in perspective, like she's running sub-4 pace at the end of her 3,000-meter indoor run.
That's what you got to be able to do.
USA's Whitney Morgan, as an asterisk, finished 4th place.
Yeah, just outside
of the medals. But good to note because she's been doing so well.
True that.
Well, the women's 1,500 did not go with surprises. I'm saying that in a really weird way.
Was not surprising?
It was not a surprising run, and it was never really a question of who was going to win.
Well, unless she fell over.
That's true. That could happen, but Sige doesn't usually do that. And Gudaf Sige, as we were just saying, she ended up running a championship record in a time of 3:54.86. So went out from the gun really fast. I mean,
her first 800 meters was 2:03.
It was insane.
For perspective, that is well under pace-wise the current world record in the mile.
Yeah.
And for women. And her first 400 meters was under sub-4 mile pace.
Yeah.
So she started as fast as what most people would hope to dream of finishing.
And it's interesting, as you follow runners for a long time, we've been doing this a long time on the show, 6 years. So if you want more previous running news, we did include that in our episodes for the last 6 years. But as you follow them, you realize, like, I see a pattern of how this athlete runs and races for the most part. And Gudafsage tends to run fast and see what she's got, and typically runs positive splits and plans to.
She has explicitly stated that's the strategy. Like, not just for like a championship race scenario. That's how she prefers to run. Hard in the beginning, and then just, kind of try not to fade too hard in the second half. Which is completely counterintuitive to what we know to be the most effective way to do things. But when we generalize, we miss the point of individual strengths and weaknesses. And she clearly has some kind of propensity for things. And many have said if Sige just ran races differently, then she'd be even faster. But she has run races differently, and she doesn't necessarily run faster. So who knows?
Who knows?
She did win this one, though. That's
won,
for sure.
But yeah, it wasn't even a challenge.
Nearly 2 seconds
Yep.
ahead.
Durbe
Welteji
ended up in silver, and then it was Georgia Hunter-Bell getting the bronze from Great Britain.
Right on. And then Georgia Griffith of Australia was fourth for an Oceania and Australian national record in 4.8.
And Welteji and Bell were really challenging at the end there with Griffith. So it was down to the wire to find out who was going to get the medals and what color they would be.
Yeah, fundamentally, Welteji went out nearly with Sige. She tried to match her early heat.
Yeah.
And it clearly did not bode well for her in the later stages of the race, but she kind of rallied toward the finish and still finished well.
I was impressed. Silver. I thought she was going to just really fade because it was so hot in the beginning, but was really mentally strong, I think, because she was done.
Yeah, lessons abound here because different people achieved success in different ways in this race. And there was a moment, I actually think I said to Andy at one point that I was pretty sure Georgia Hunter-Bell was regretting not trying to match that early pace a bit more because she almost looked like she wished she would have and tried to kind of reel him in. But fundamentally, no one was likely going to keep up with Sige with what she was doing. And so to try early on would have more than likely backfired on just about anyone who did it. And Welteji, case in point, it nearly did backfire for her. But Hunter-Bell ended up executing well despite that setback to still finish in the medals.
Who was it? There was someone who went with them that did suffer bad.
You're thinking about the women's 800.
Oh, okay. Wrong race.
We'll talk about that too. All right, well, let's bounce over to the men's races now, the 3,000, 1,500, because now's the time to talk about Ingebrigtsen. So this is a difficult double. And we know it's difficult because only one person historically has ever successfully won both the men's 3,000 and 1,500 in the same competition. And who is that, you might ask? It was not some of the most predictable names. It was Ethiopia's Haile Gebrselassie in 1999. He was the first king of distance running, by the way. If you could call Kenenisa Bekele and maybe Mo Farah as some of the kings of distance running, things like that, Gebrselassie was the first. And people say Paul Turgat was. But anyway, so Gebrselassie dominated the scene from the mile up through the 10,000 and then eventually to the marathon. He just did it all, and he did it all better than anyone ever had in his time. And so in that spree of setting all the records and all the things, Gebrselassie also achieved some things that no one else had ever done, and no one ever did after. This was one of them, until Ingebrigtsen.
Enter KINGebrigtsen.
The king. So what many just kind of figured was a foregone conclusion and a kind of run-of-the-mill experience, in fact, is actually quite historical here. So it starts with the men's 3,000, the first of the two events, and Ingebrigtsen let others do the work early on, like he always does, most often does, in championship races. And it was the Ethiopians, Gednet Wale and Beniam Meheri, who made the early moves to try to shake things up and work together a bit to see if they couldn't put some heat on. And they didn't hold it for too terribly long. And it's hard to know exactly why, decisions back and forth in these kinds of moments. But as it were, the race looked entirely manageable for everyone in the field, which is a dangerous thing because then it becomes kind of like a kicker's run.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Berihu Aregawi of Ethiopia is also known to be able to finish well in these types of distances and has won his fair share of races doing so. So when he took the lead late and just really put on a punishing pace, it was like, okay, maybe Ingebrigtsen underestimated this race a bit.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
Aregawi was hauling and looking strong.
Yep. And so Ingebrigtsen went with him, had to chase him down a little bit, went with him, tried to get around him. Aregawi wouldn't let him. Tried to get around him again. Aregawi wouldn't let him. And suddenly it looks like Ingebrigtsen might not have quite enough to make it happen. But with 50 meters to go, suddenly he did. And he puts on a burst of speed, looks over at Aregawi as he passes him, just watches him wilt beneath his almighty stare.
He never wilted. Aregawi looked good until the end to me. This is my observation of watching Ingebrigtsen run this race, and I've noticed this before, but he looks like he is just in general more comfortable. He's able to have a higher cadence and have longer legs than a lot of his competitors. And so he doesn't look like he is straining as hard as everyone else is going at the same speed. And so that's what I was kind of noticing as it was unfolding, these surges. Aregawi was having to push so much harder to continue to accelerate. Yeah. And then in the end, in the last bit, it was Ingebrigtsen who was able to finish off. But at that point, I was seeing it like, okay, he's not putting in as much effort to accelerate as Aregawi.
Yeah, and you get the impression is like Ingebrigtsen just has like gears for days. He just every acceleration, he's got another one. He's got another one. And it's like, when is he going to stop accelerating? The answer is until he wins. He won't stop. And
Can't stop, won't stop.
So he won. And he won the first gold of the day, of the meet. Aregawi took silver. And then it was Kai Robinson of Australia, speaking of the Australians who don't always run indoors, Kai Robinson, who narrowly outkicked USA's Sam Gilman. Gilman had it locked. With 100 meters to go, he was glorious. With 50 meters to go, it was definitely his. And then it was like 20 meters from the line, Robinson catches him, just edges him out by hundredths of a second to take the bronze.
But we're glad to be able to mention him on the podcast because, again, this is not a name that you have heard as much, not an Olympian. So it's good for us to note these up-and-coming prominent runners from the USA.
Yeah, we can hope to watch for Sam Gilman's name in other championship experiences. But as it were, not yet a medalist. However, the men's 1500 is yet another different story because we've got Ingebrigtsen doubling back the next day and everybody else is fresh. So nobody else in the final was doubling as far as I'm aware. I didn't double check every single name.
We did not double check that.
But I don't recall any of them being in both.
Not up front.
So what you get in the 1500 is USA's Sam Prakel taking it out, clearly trying to make it more of an honest race. None of this like just sit and kick for the last 400 because who really wants to do that against Ingebrigtsen anymore? Apparently people still do. I don't know why. But Prakel was like, no, let's try to change this. But he wasn't like doing anything crazy. It wasn't too risky. It was enough to make the race an honest experience.
But I do wonder if there was some sort of strain on him because I think it did end up that his race was not his best.
He did not finish great or very far up.
So you wonder if there was some sort of like, yeah.
Yeah, but Prakel also does not have the most amazing kick in the world.
Well, maybe he's not primed for this race. Maybe he's looking at outdoors.
That could be too, but in general, Sam Prakel is rarely ever kicking with the best of them.
Sam Prakel, you are awesome, and I think that you're amazing, and you're super fast, and good job.
He's not going to watch this. Okay, so he did put in the early work, and teammate, countryman Luke Hauser joined him, which I think was the right move. So Hauser sets himself up for success up front. But then things start shaking up in the middle, and they get past, and people are kind of edging them in, so they're getting like stuck along the rail and going backwards. And that's just kind of the way these things go. But it was Ingebrigtsen's early observation of Prakel's move that prevented him from doing that his most common strategy, which is just wait in the back for quite a while. Instead, he only waited in the back for a very brief amount of time, and then he started moving forward to get in a closer position, which,
smart.
A little bit of got some respect for the competition, doesn't want to get caught too far back. The interesting part was when Great Britain's Neil Gorley suddenly and abundantly clearly began following Ingebrigtsen. His strategy was obvious. Stalk Ingebrigtsen. And so he did that. And as Ingebrigtsen moved, so he moved. And that continued throughout the rest of the race. Ingebrigtsen moves, Gorley moves. And he just stayed on his shoulder. And when you get down to the wire, Gorley has a good kick. And so, with a lap to go or so, and the moves start happening and the shakeups come, Ingebrigtsen's going and Gorley is just latched on like a leech. And you start to wonder, is this a time when someone's going to have a little more? Ingebrigtsen had to work pretty hard the day before to beat Aragawi. Are his legs maybe a little tired? And the answer? No.
Well, maybe they were tired.
Not tired enough. Because Iron Man can't be fatigued, it would seem.
I have to say, though, in this race did not think he was going to get overtaken, even when they were close. And the reason was, again, I thought Gorley looked like he was working so much harder than Ingebrigtsen. So I knew Ingebrigtsen had more in the end than Gorley.
Well, that's because Ingebrigtsen doesn't have to try. He just flies. So, yes, Ingebrigtsen took the gold, achieved the double. Gorley still took the silver in impressive fashion, but in bronze position, it ended up being Luke Hauser with a stunning final 200 meters kick and a surprise achievement to take the bronze medal, his first global medal, and what I believe is his first global final even.
That makes sense to me, but I didn't check it. He's very young.
He is, in fact. Recall he was an NCAA champion at the University of Washington, but only recently on the professional scene and has not made a significant appearance at the global stage as of yet. But this is a good start.
Great global debut.
Right?
Get a medal.
So there you have it. The men's double achieved. You could just say accomplished by Ingebrigtsen. He now has become the second ever male athlete to achieve the 3,000 meter, 1,500 meter double at the indoor championships. And we can't discount that. There's a lot of commentary behind the scenes that Ingebrigtsen should acknowledge that even though he achieved such an amazing thing, he didn't have as much competition as he could have had, for instance.
No Yard Nagoose, no Cole Hawker, no Josh Kerr.
My point in response to that is that's not Ingebrigtsen's fault. Everyone else could have run this race, and they didn't. Why? Because they're afraid of him.
Guess what? The person who shows up wins or is the accomplished one, right? Like, you can't say what if.
It doesn't matter. It does
could have,
not
should
matter.
have, would have.
Let's say that there was no one else in the race. It's still the World Indoor Championships. He's still the second athlete ever to do the 3,000 meter, 1,500 meter.
And it still was a good
gold.
field. It wasn't like a bad field. There's just more people who are challenging him in other events.
True that. So he did it. Joins Haile Gebrselassie, and now you have to answer the question: does that make him the best? He has Olympic golds. He has World Championship golds. He has World Indoor golds. He has world records. What else do you want the man to do?
Get a 1,500 meter gold medal. Do I want that?
He hasn't won in the Olympics.
That's what I'm saying. In the Olympics.
He has. His first Olympic medal was a 1,500 meter gold. He just hasn't ever done it again since then. Yeah, I'm saying now, if people aren't willing to say he's the best in the conversation of who are the best runners, then they're just simply not being honest.
Well,
I
feel like there's others that are. The thing is like you have to, and that's the cool thing about running is that everybody toes the line of the race with the same opportunity each time. So he's a GOAT, like he's a legend, but that doesn't mean that when he shows up, he's not going to get beat by Cole Hawker, Yard Nagoose, Josh Kerr. It's not like, okay, but that's the cool thing because it's like on this day, who's the GOAT? On this day, who's the best?
No.
Day.
That's not the point. The point isn't whether someone's infallible. The point is whether someone's body of work sets them above others.
Okay.
And his body of work is beyond almost anyone else's in the history of the sport.
Whether we like his attitude or not.
Right.
I guess.
Right. So, well, there's more to come because he's doing more. He's not done. He's only 24 years old. Did he just turn 25? He's like 24 or 25 years old. If he wanted to, he could continue on this level for at least 5 more years, if not
a decade.
10.
Yeah.
But chances are he doesn't actually want to
I
do
think
that.
he's going to move up in distance,
I think he's not. I think he's...
He said he thinks he's a half marathoner, remember?
And he's tried a few longer things, and they have not gone super well.
It was bad, but
so
he did one. All right, let's move on.
Final events for the World Indoor Championships, the 800 meters.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the women. Amy.
Yeah, let's start with the women. So this one had some new-ish names. At least for me, unfamiliar names. Nagit's Jetshu took the race out in a first lap that was absolutely bonkers.
It was insane. We're watching this thinking, what are they doing? They were at a dead sprint for the entire first 200 meters.
I have this now ingrained little like visual memory of this race because when I saw it, they looked afraid. They looked like they were running from a cheetah or like a lion or something because they were running so fast and they looked like on their faces shocked and afraid.
She's specifically, Andy's referring to Getachew and Daguma, who went out in first and second position, and because they both had this kind of look on their faces, and you know why in retrospect. Daguma was trying to get to the lead. She wanted to lead the race, but she couldn't because Getachew was at a dead sprint. And Getachew was likely the whole time thinking, you never can speculate on what an athlete's actually thinking, but I'm doing so right now. But the whole time she's thinking, I got to get out, I got to get out. But she had pressure, she had company, and no one at that speed ever expects someone else to be with them. Like you sprint for a moment and then you settle, but there was no chance to settle because they were both doing it.
Yeah. And 26 seconds. Let's put that in perspective. That is, okay, let's do some math here. 52 seconds?
Well, first, you have to understand most women
400?
Most women distance runners cannot run a 200 meter in 26 seconds.
That is it's just so fast. And it looked fast, guys. It looked like they had terror in their faces. Daguma especially looked that way to me. So that's what I was thinking of earlier when I was like, oh, well... I guess I'm giving it away, but she struggled hard.
Well, they came through 226. They came through 456 and change, what amounted to essentially a 26 and then a 29 second lap, second 200.
So getting slower.
Yes, but still at 400, running some of the fastest you've ever seen women 800 meter runners run, which is really saying something. But then the questions start asking. What's going to happen next?
What's going to happen? Others attempted to stay close, which probably wasn't the best idea, seeing as how it was crazy fast. But again, it's a championship race. So you want to set yourself up to be able to catch when you need to, and you run more on race instinct than you do on listening to yourself or listening to anything around you. Personally, I think that you need a balance of both, but...
Well,
Audrey Wero... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, those are the people.
Yeah, Audrey Wero of Switzerland and Prudence Segodski of South Africa were trying, but just, too fast.
Well, maybe for some, but not for all of them. We'll get to that. What's most notable here is... in the first half of the race, in dead last, was Portugal's Patricia Silva. So remember that. She did not do all of the crazy things that everyone else was doing. She just went to the back and just tried not to get too far behind. But then, with 200 meters to go, so now we're 3 laps into a 4-lap race, and they're each 200-meter laps. So with 200 meters to go, things were starting to shake up. Getachew was somehow still holding the lead, but getting slower every lap. Daguma, while still close to the front was going backwards fast. You could already tell. Her body was just done. And then Segudiso, who had gone out basically with them, looked like she was ready to race. And that was dangerous. Andy and I both looked at each other and were like, oh, Segudiso, watch out. She's coming. And in fact, that was true. And so in the last 200 meters, Segudiso took the lead and ended up winning the race by 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
That's a ton. It's a ton in the 800.
Yep. Which is amazing.
Yeah.
But with that lap to go, almost 2 seconds behind everyone else was Silva of Portugal, still in dead last. And over the course of the final 200 meters, when Segudiso took the lead, Getachew went with her, kind of, and held her second position. And then everything else was just madness. Everyone's going, some going backwards, some going forwards. Audrey Werrow was trying so hard to rally after clearly burning her legs early, yet she somehow found another move. Daguma was going backwards so fast, people were almost running into her. And I'm not trying to be dramatic here. She was just, her legs were spent. She ended up 4 seconds behind the next to last person in only the last 200 meters. Remember, she was almost in the lead with 200 meters to go. In the last 200 meters, she lost something like 7 seconds almost on the first place person. Werrow did rally, but not quite enough. Segudiso, I mentioned, won the race. And then it was Getachew holding on. This was the miracle, I think, holding on for second. And it was Silva from last to medal position over the last 200 meters, clearly the freshest of the bunch because her kick was amazing. And she ended up in the bronze medal position.
Personally, that's a much more fun way to run the race.
More successful, that's for sure, for everyone except for Segudiso. So, by the way, Segudiso won South Africa's first ever women's indoor medal. Any event.
Any event.
In track and field. That's exciting. Very cool. She ran 158.4, which is also a new South African indoor 800-meter record.
That makes sense.
Yep. A full second behind, plus some, was Getachew, who took the silver medal. And that happens to be her first global medal as well. So despite what might have appeared to be a rookie mistake in the race, she still pulled off a significant finish.
I thought that was absolutely wild, that she was able to continue to run so fast, because you would imagine that she felt terrible. So
Andy, as our resident middle distance running expert, Andy is a multiple-time collegiate All-American in the 1,000 meters indoors. So you have high levels of experience indoors in particular. How bad would it hurt to just dead sprint the first 400?
It feels so bad. Like, I feel like it would be impossible to like recoup from that. I don't know. Like, in the end, it's different when you're closing.
Yeah, it is. Now, here's the question. In that scenario, do you think you would be more likely to be a Getachew or a Daguma? Would you be in dead last by a lot, or would you somehow hold on? Honest reflections.
I mean, I would hope that I could hold on to some mental strength and continue on. But, like, personally, knowing my body, I just think sometimes when I have crossed the line, it's just a big no from my body.
All is done.
So, like, I think I have strong resilience. I'm now a marathoner, and you have to have that. But sometimes it's not about the will of the spirit. It's about the body and how it can't do it anymore.
Maybe. Well, in third place, Silva ran a new Portuguese indoor record for also her first global medal. She ran 159.8. And despite her best efforts, Audrey Werrow of Switzerland couldn't hold off Silva's charge and settled for fourth in a new Swiss indoor record.
So lots of new names.
In fact, as far as medal stands go, lots of new names and records. Really, with the exception of Daguma, every other woman in that race ran an indoor personal best. Is that not something?
Which is weird with how it was set up for them.
Well, what happened was
the lead out.
The lead out just set the tone, and those who didn't burn their legs held on and
made space too. It made space.
did that.
Because part of the 800 challenge is that you are constrained by the people around you. And sometimes you get a choppy stride because there's people in front of you or behind you, or you have to like move to the outside. So I guess they created some space, which might have been one of the factors.
Who knows if that's part of it or not, but it certainly helped in some sense because 5 out of 6 running personal bests, 3 of those 5 being national records. It's not a terrible day.
Not a bad day.
The men's 800 was a little bit different story. It was a much more traditional race. No one was doing anything crazy, although there was some risk taking, and it's fun to talk about. But let's just note here that the big question coming into this race was, is Josh Hoey of the United States going to put the final stamp on his incredible breakout season? So let's figure that out. Because as the race goes underway, it's any man's race for the first half, the first 400 meters of this 800. But at 400, with 2 laps to go, it was USA's Brandon Miller who decided to just really shake things up. And he just went hard to the front and kept pressing. And immediately it's like, okay, the race is happening. Get with it or go home. And Josh Hoey recognized where the race was and what was happening, and he went with it, among others. And so as Brandon Miller takes things on his shoulders, Hoey begins to execute, or at least continues to execute, what amounted to a flawless 800-meter race. And after Miller's move started to dwindle, which those moves tend to do in the 800, it was Hoey who took over, and Hoey who took the gold.
Yeah. It's been cool to watch his season. That's why we got to pay attention to indoors, because things do happen, and it does shake up the whole scene.
Yep. An indoor U.S. record in both the 1,000 meters and the 800 meters. World number 2 all time in the 1,000 meters. And I think it's world number 3 or 4 in the 800. And so Hoey's season has just been nonstop excellent. And he was able, thankfully, to continue that excellence, to produce in the biggest moment of the season, which is, of course, the championships. Now, beyond that, it's also important to remember that we call this a breakout season. A year ago, Josh Hoey was a what happened to this guy runner. As a high schooler, he was setting the U.S. high school record, among other achievements, but then just didn't seem to rise to expectations. And then he somehow came back. And he's not a young guy anymore. I mean, he is. He is a young guy.
He's a young guy.
He is a young guy. But the point is, he's had quite a while to try to figure things out, and very rarely do runners actually return after that kind of a slump.
In the professional scene, but I have seen in the recreational scene that happen a lot. People have slumps, and then they, because of different things, right? There's a variety of factors, but then they end up coming to themselves again and exceeding expectation and having really great seasons.
That's true. It does happen. So Hoey won the gold. In the silver medal position was Belgium's Elliot Cruschen, and in the bronze medal position was Spain's Elvin Josue Canales. Names you wouldn't necessarily hear on a medal stand, so it's always fun to find the new players in town. And that was the World Indoor Championships in a nutshell. It was very exciting. We enjoy every minute of track and field.
One thing, in the women's 800, there were no U.S. women, but Nia Akins in the finals. Nia Akins had fallen, and that was the reason that many speculate that she wasn't in the finals.
Hasn't she done that before?
I don't know, but again, the 800 is so physical.
It is. Well, it has to be, because you're running very fast. You have very little space. You cut in on each other immediately. Well, not quite immediately, but almost immediately. And also, you're basically at your limits and having to navigate around other runners. That's a very hard combination. So lots of jostling, often falling. Okay. Well, let's talk about Sam Ruth. We teased this in the
we did.
In the beginning because you want to know about this achievement. Recall Sam Ruth, the last time we spoke about him, when he tied two to the thousandth of a second. Literally, they had to give them a tie because they could not tell which won the race. Sam Ruth tied two-time Olympian Sam Tanner in the Kiwi National Championships, the New Zealand Outdoor Track and Field Championships. And so, as a 15-year-old, that's no small thing. But he's also been running fast times. And so the question starts to enter, the last time we saw a 15, 16-year-old doing things like this, we were observing what would become one of the greatest runners of all time in the form of Jakob Ingebrigtsen. So now the questions are being asked. Is Sam Ruth on his way? Well, he made one final attempt as a 15-year-old to try to prove that he is, in fact, on his way, because Jakob Ingebrigtsen held the record for the youngest ever sub-4 mile. He was 16 years old and about 250 days, so near his 17th birthday. Sam Ruth, as a 15-year-old, plus 11 months and 7 days, so he's 3 weeks shy of his 16th birthday, attempted a sub-4 mile. And what did he run? Well, first, before we tell you, he was paced by none other than that same countryman, two-time Olympian Sam Tanner, who also happens to be a kind of training partner. Sam Tanner does not strictly and only train there, but when he is, they appear to be training together for a fair bit of the time.
So cool.
Which is really neat. I mean, that 15-year-old's got to just be like, I'm living the dream. So Sam Tanner paced the race along. They had a first rabbit who dropped out a little bit earlier, and then Tanner just ran the whole entire thing. He didn't just drop out like, with a lap to go or something. He ran the whole thing. And right behind the two of them was Ben Wall, who was making his first ever sub-4 attempt as well. So Sam Ruth got the perfect scenario where he had a rabbit in front of him who he could trust wholly and fully. There was never a doubt in Sam Ruth's mind that Sam Tanner was going to take him through. Partly because they do this in training, partly because Sam Tanner can run much faster than this. So it's, of course, something within his well manageable. But then also Sam Ruth had another runner behind him, and the research on the concept of drafting has consistently proven that it's not just helpful to have someone in front of you, but also to have someone right behind you. Because then what happens is it does something with how the air resistance is moving around you to help prevent any other kinds of additional friction against the air. So I don't know this full research on it. I haven't actually looked at the physics of that specifically, but I know that they have found this to be the case in many instances. And another example of that was Ruth Chepngetich marathon record, where they were testing things like that. But anyway, so here they go.
Here they go.
And Ruth, from the beginning, just looked like he was running easy. I cannot explain how he looks while he's running other than easy. He just makes it look easy.
That reminds me of somebody else.
Yeah, you were just describing that earlier. And so, yes, much like the KINGebrigtsen himself, who held this record previously, I'm obviously speaking in the past tense for a reason, Sam Ruth runs through the laps with ease, and Tanner just keeps him on pace right in front of him the entire time. Never a falter, never a flinch. And when they get with 100 meters to go, Sam Tanner edges out and starts running right next to Ruth, and he's just yelling, cheering. And you can see, he's looking at Sam Ruth. He's not looking where he's going. He's looking at Sam Ruth, and his arms are going, and he's cheering him on. And Ruth just powered down the home straight for a 3:58.35. Didn't just break 4, but with clear authority broke 4 minutes for the mile. By the way, Ben Wall behind him also ran sub-4 for the first time. So the two of them came along. The energy was electric. And now we have to just start asking questions. Where's Sam Ruth headed? Where's he going? Because he's 15 years old plus nearly, he's basically 16. He's 16 years old by the time we're saying this and has become the youngest sub-4 miler ever. Holds the age record, and they don't keep records officially at this young of an age, so it's age best for the 1,500 meters and the 3,000 meters. And so we are really excited to watch this career unfold. And at the same time, there's a little bit of hesitation. Is it too much, too soon? You always have to wonder that. We'll see.
That's where our headline came from. That KINGebrigtsen has been dethroned, at least in his youth record.
His past self.
His past self. But it is great indication for Sam Ruth.
Indeed. More to come, we hope.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pivot now to talking about some shout-outs and updates from our A to Z running crew.
Before we do our game, so keep listening.
Right. That's why I told people they had to listen to the end.
Right.
Okay, so quick shout-outs to some A to Z runners because racing is happening and it's always exciting. At the Chicago Shamrock Shuffle, which is the USA Track and Field Club Road Championships, A to Z Running fielded our first ever team at the USATF Any Kind of Club Championships, and it was a lot of exciting and fun things. Shout out to Mike, who led the team's finish, and then CJ and Zach, who both were debuting at the 8K distance.
Automatic PRs.
Round out the crew.
Cool.
Automatic PRs, indeed.
And Madeline ran Brighter Days Brewing 5K, getting her first in age group. Getting first in age group.
Getting first in her.
In her age group, yeah.
Congrats, Madeline.
Yeah, way to go, Madeline.
Exciting stuff. Good jobs all around. All right, here we go.
What are you going to ask ChatGPT?
We have a game we are going to play.
Is this real ChatGPT or is it like Gemini? Or
I am not naming the AI agents that we use for these kinds of things because that is not the point. But we are going to use an AI agent to ask us trivia questions.
Okay.
We're going to do this. If this is a good hit, tell us in the comments, right? If you like this, or most of the time when you people tell us about things, you actually message us directly. So do that too. But tell us if you like these things, because I think it's a load of fun, and we're going to continue to do it.
It will be embarrassing for me, but that's okay.
No,
I'm willing to swallow my pride.
We're going to it's going to be a kind of contest between Andy and Zach. And we're going to have multiple choice questions because neither of us will ever get any of these things right if they're not multiple choice, and see if we can figure out the trivia questions. But we're also going to try to make it timely. Whatever's going on in the running universe, we're going to try to orient it around that. So Boston Marathon's coming.
Woo!
So we're going to do that. All right.
Okay.
First, we have to introduce our guest as I turn it on. Hey, how's it going? We are recording our running podcast. It is called A to Z Running, and you are on air with our guest right now. Please say hello.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to A to Z Running. I'm excited to be part of the show.
And we're glad to have you with us. Thanks. All right, so here's what we want to do with you. We would like to do a trivia game where you ask us multiple choice trivia questions on a topic. We're going to give you the topic, and we will try to answer them between the two of us. It's Andy and Zach here. And we're going to try to answer them, and then we're going to ask you what the correct answer is and see if one of us got it correct. Okay, so here's the topic. First, we are going to do the Boston Marathon. Okay, that's our topic. And we would like you to give us trivia questions. We'll just do one at a time. Give us one trivia question about past champions in the Boston Marathon, and then please give us 4 options for the correct answer. Okay, 4 options, Boston Marathon, past trivia champions. Go ahead.
All right, let's dive into some Boston Marathon champion trivia. Here's your question. Who was the first Kenyan runner to win the Boston Marathon? 1. Ibrahim Hussein. 2. Cosmas Ndeti. 3. Jeffrey Mutai. 4. Robert Kipkoech Cheruiyot. What's your guess?
Okay, hold on a second. We're going to think about it.
Take your time. Let me know when you're ready with an answer.
Do you have a guess yet? It's going to be 1, 2, 3, or 4.
I have a 25% chance. Okay,
yes, you do.
I got it. I have my hands. I have it in my hands.
I have mine as well. All right, on the count of 3, put your hand up. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, you guessed 4 and I guessed 1. Okay, chat, tell us what was the correct answer.
The correct answer is 1. Ibrahim Hussein.
Ibrahim Hussein. What year did Ibrahim Hussein win the Boston Marathon?
Ibrahim Hussein won the Boston Marathon in 1988.
All right, excellent. Okay, let's do one more. Do you want to do one more?
Let's do one more.
Let's do one more. Okay, go ahead, chat. Ask us another Boston Marathon trivia question, past champions, and give us 4 options for multiple choice answers.
All right, let's keep it going. Here's your next question. Which female runner won the Boston Marathon 3 consecutive times in the 1980s? 1. Rosa Mota. 2. Joan Benoit Samuelson. 3. Ingrid Christensen. 4. Greta White. What's your guess?
Oh. Okay, wait just a moment. We're going to think about it. Do you have your answer?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, wait. On the count of 3, hold up your fingers. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, you guessed 4. I don't even remember who that was. I guessed Joan Benoit Samuelson. Okay, chat, what was the correct answer?
The correct answer is 1. Rosa Mota. She won 3 times in a row. Great effort.
Neither of us got it. All right, so the ongoing score is Zach 1, Andy 0.
Should we do one more? Let's just do
one more.
Yeah. 3 is a good number.
Right, okay.
I think 3 should be the number of trivia we do each time.
Okay, chat, let's do one more. Give us another one.
All right, here's one more for you. Which runner set the then course record in 2011 with a time of 2:03:02? 1. Jeffrey Mutai. 2. Lalisa DeCisa. 3. Meb Keflezighi. 4. Evans Chebet. What's your guess?
Okay. Do you know yet? Do you have a guess?
Yes.
You have a guess? Okay. Give me those options one more time, please.
Sure. Here are the options again. 1. Jeffrey Mutai. 2. Lalisa DeCisa. 3. Meb Keflezighi. 4. Evans Chebet. What's your pick?
Okay, on the count of 3, hold up your fingers. 1, 2, 3.
3.
Oh.
Meb.
You guess Meb has the record?
He had at the time, right?
No.
Oh, he hasn't run that fast. He hasn't even run that fast before.
Okay. All right, chat. I guessed Evans Chebet. What is the correct answer?
The correct answer is 1. Jeffrey Mutai.
Oh.
You're wrong again.
Okay, all right. Well, hey, thank you for the time. How about you say goodbye to the audience?
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast. Keep running strong, everyone.
Right on. How about that? What a polite guest. What a polite and knowledgeable guest. All right, folks, now you have to tell us, is that a fun and interesting segment? We're probably going to keep doing it even if you say no, because we had fun. It's very exciting. And now we have an ongoing scoreboard, which we will inform you of each week. How are Andy and Zach doing? Out of 3 questions, Zach got 1, Andy got 0. And that's not the greatest results for either of us. We're not passing any running tests today, but it's going to be a blast. We're going to keep doing it. Mm-hmm. But that's it for now.
That's it for now. And make sure that you check out our other segment of our podcast where we inform you of things that matter to you to help you thrive as a runner. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week with more running news.